Wonderful. So, thank you all for joining. My name is Ashley Anthony. I am the Education and Engagement Manager at Climate Reality Project Canada, and I chair the Atlantic Canada Climate Network Initiative. So, our mission at the ACCN, or the Atlantic Canada Climate Network, is to connect folks working on climate action within Atlantic Canada and to center justice, collaborate effectively, and leverage available resources and capacity efficiently as we reduce emissions and respond to climate change impacts. So, addressing climate change is increasingly important to the health and well being of our community and planet. And over time, we've noticed that different organizations experience the same needs and barriers, successes, and more. But without a convenient ongoing communication channel between climate champions, we risk limiting ourselves to disjointed or incremental changes. So, our goal is to reduce barriers and create collaboration across Atlantic Canada. We aim to critique dominant ways of knowing, thinking, and doing, and to create opportunities for education to all Atlantic Canadians. Before we begin, of course, I'd like to acknowledge that we are connecting today on the traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, the Wolastoqiyik, Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, and Abenaki nations, or the Wabanaki Confederacy, as well as Innu and Inuit peoples. This territory is covered by the Treaties of Peace and Friendship, which these nations first signed with the British Crown in 1726. Now, these treaties did not deal with the surrender of lands and resources, but in fact established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. So it's in this spirit of peace and friendship that I greet you all today. I'm very excited to be able to host the first community of practice meeting back and take you through a little bit of what we are expecting moving forward. So I'm just going to open the chat and drop a link of the agenda so that everybody can contribute or be on the same page and make sure that, yeah, we all get the opportunity here to know what's going on. My screen was too small and it did not want me to find the chat button, but here we are. So it's September. We're excited to be here. I'm glad that there is a wonderful group, some people that I've seen before and some people that are new. So I think that the best way to move around is to, because we are so intimate, we can popcorn style and introduce ourselves. And then we'll set like a context of what the community of practice is going to be and how we're going to move forward and how we see ourselves working together. And I'll tell you a little bit about some upcoming events that we have as well. Does that sound like a good way to start for everybody? Wonderful. Well, because I'm already the one talking, I figure I'll introduce myself fully first. Like I said, my name is Ashley Anthony. I'm located here in what's colonially known as St. John, New Brunswick. I've lived in New Brunswick since 2018 after moving around the country a lot. My background is in radio journalism, so you'll probably hear me talk a lot along the road. Somebody paid me to do it, and then I just never stopped. But I'm excited to be here with you. Yeah, I've been chairing the ACCN for the last year and helped it come into fruition after a good stretch of research and talking to community groups and trying to understand how we can help build a better space for climate action in Atlantic Canada. So I work from an organization called Climate Reality Project, and I have a colleague with me here. His name is Adrian. I'm going to pass it over to him so that he can introduce himself as well. Adrian, please.
Sure. Hello there. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I am actually joining you from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and Treaty One territory. But I have definitely have roots in PI. My dad lives in Union Corner, so which is a small community of maybe 100 people, fairly close to Summerside. So I get to spend time at least in the area, and I've been very lucky to be traveling around. But mostly, I'm here to take notes and listen and support as needed. So. With that, I am going to pass the mic to Vikram.
Sure. Hey, I'm Vikram. I work in sustainability with a company called Bloom Funding. I'm new to Atlantic Canada. I just finished my master's degree in Montreal and I'm moving there in October. So I'm excited to see what's up and get connected with some people. If I have to pass it along, I don't know. Carrie.
Hi everyone, my name's Kerry. I'm actually coming to you from Ontario, but I went online and there doesn't seem to be anything happening for Climate Reality Ontario, and I got the email for this event, and I normally work a Thursday, and I guess the stars aligned, and today I am free. I've just come out of one meeting. I've got one meeting afterwards, but I had this and I thought, oh, I've got to come on. So I work for the Canadian Nurses for the Environment. I used to run the Ontario Nurses for the Environment, and yeah, so actively working in this area. I have a BSc, a master's, and a PhD, all in climate change. But yeah, so I just want to connect with other people because it gets quite isolating. And I did do my Climate Reality, I think that was in 2010, so quite a while ago. And I've been working along just quietly on the side on different things, but just recently have taken the bull by the horns, and you know, the Canadian Nurses have they opened up a position and I've jumped into it, and we're looking to move full steam ahead around these issues. So yeah, I just want to be with like-minded people. So thanks for the email, and I'm sorry I'm not Atlantic Canada, but I'm happy to network and get to know everyone. So thanks everyone.
Although this is hosted by, no worries.
Sorry?
Although this is hosted by the ACCN, it's welcome to everybody. So that's why I sent out an email to all of our CRLs and stuff as well. We'll be focusing on a lot of Atlantic Canadian issues. We feel on the pan-Canadian scale, they're really not talked about enough. So we want to make sure that we're centering a lot of the things that are happening here, helping people mobilize here. And it's wonderful that you've come because you're from Ontario. Obviously, you're very intelligent, all of that education. Yeah, so you can help us and share some of your wisdom and resources. You're more than welcome here, and we would love to welcome you into this community. So thank you, Carrie, for joining us.
Whereabouts in
oh, pardon.
whereabouts? Sorry, hate to interrupt, but whereabouts in Ontario? I'm in Ottawa right now.
Oh, actually, I'm just down by Niagara Falls. So I'm
Right.
close to Lake Erie. So yeah, about 20 minutes from Niagara Falls. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So there we go. All over the show. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll guess Vincent, do you want to go next?
So I've always been involved kind of with ACN for a little while now, so doing like communication stuff and as on the side as a volunteer kind of stuff, and just did a big presentation yesterday, like kind of my first one for the ACCN, which was kind of I mean I just kind of finished university back in 21, and then I'm from Quebec originally. So I tried to find my first job in Quebec. It didn't work out. Nobody wanted a new grad in my field. They were all saying, oh, not good enough, not enough experience. Go do more volunteering, then come back and see us after that. But it's like, how many years of volunteering? Like 50 years? And then you're going to hire me? Like, you're going to hire me when I'm dead in my coffin? Anyways, it's just how it kind of felt. And then I was like, okay, if Quebec doesn't work, where else would I go? And I was like, I don't really want to go like too far west. And like New Brunswick, I already knew people, so, and I have family down here. So I was like, okay, maybe that's another province I can check out. And it's not as if I usually came here for vacation when I was growing up, so I knew the area already, like St. John, Wassay mostly. And so I moved down here up on the Acadian Peninsula for a small job there. And then once that was finished, I moved all the way down south to St. John. And I've been down here ever since. Just trying to get involved in the community, like Climate Reality, then ACCN, then yeah. And then trying to get that experience. So then somebody would say, oh, that's good enough for us to hire you.
Tough out there. How
Yeah,
do you
so
how do you like St. John?
Yeah, St. John. Yeah.
How do you like it? I'm moving there next month.
It's, I mean, Ashley's from in St. John too, so I mean, it's fine. It's beautiful, but I mean, it has its
it has
Parts.
its pros and cons,
it's
right?
kind of black and white.
Right.
No, I
It's
don't
a
want to
very
say like too much.
complicated place.
Yeah, I don't want to say too many bad stuff to discourage people from moving here.
I'm moving no matter what, so
But I mean, there's some neighborhoods you don't want to walk through because there's just like the home the homeless issue here just has
It's
gotten so
exploded.
bad since COVID. So there's like neighborhoods that like it's just gonna be like tents all over the place.
it's
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah, it's here
Yeah,
in
it's
Ottawa too.
everywhere. But I mean, because St. John is so small, it's kind of easy to see
Mhm.
it all over the place. And you kind of know it's kind of tricky when you're trying to walk around to go to groceries or whatever because yeah. But I mean it's a beautiful city because I mean you're right on the Bay of Fundy, so you get so like you're gonna see seals as often as you're gonna see squirrels or whatever around here. So it's
Highest tides in the world too, 25-foot
yeah,
tides.
yeah, the highest tides. Yeah.
It's crazy.
And you're gonna hear the popcorns like every night.
Hmm.
Almost they're gonna wake you up if you have your windows open.
Thank you, Vincent. Yeah, Vince actually helps us organize our innovation speaker series and helps the ACCN with some communications coordination as well. So thank you, Vincent, for all the things that you do. Mel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So nice to meet all of you guys. I, like everyone here, have also kind of lived all over the place and had a bunch of different things in life. I grew up in Alberta. I've also lived internationally in a couple different countries and lived in British Columbia. And then I am currently tuning in from Nova Scotia. I moved out here just over 2 years ago, fell in love with the East Coast and decided to stay. For now anyway, we'll see, nomad spirit, but I live on the eastern shore in a little community called East Chesapeake. It's about 45 minutes outside of Halifax. And I come from also a very varied background in environmental science and environmental education, but then I also got into humane education, working within the animal welfare world for a very long time. Before I got back into more of an environmental focus that landed me in climate, and I was working in youth climate action last year. I coordinated a program called Climate Futures Lab, which is put on by Youth Challenge International. So I was working with YCI and brought Climate Futures Lab out to the East Coast for the first time, which was an amazing time. And then I popped over to Zanzibar, Tanzania for the summer to write a climate strategy for their Her Start program. So I was living in Zanzibar for 3 months, writing a climate strategy with our Tanzania team for YCI. And then upon coming back here, the grant funding didn't come through yet to continue Climate Futures Lab. So I have picked up a new position. I'm currently working with Second Harvest, which is Canada's largest food rescue organization. So I'm the new food raising manager for Atlantic Canada. So I will be working based out of my home in Nova Scotia, but working in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, and Newfoundland and Labrador, bringing food into the system to make sure that it is not going to landfills and instead getting onto people's plates. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. That's very exciting. Would you like to pick somebody else?
I was just gonna say, have we been through? Oh no, Kira. I'm sorry, a couple more people came on. Kira, guess what? You're next.
Hi everyone, I'm Kira. I joined a little late. I I moved to Nova Scotia in May and I was working in the Annapolis Valley doing river restoration type work. And I moved to Halifax a couple weeks ago, and I recently started a job with the Oath Project. I'm sure maybe some of you know Shatang Shu. He seems to have gotten around and knows a lot of people. Yeah, I did my degree at Trent University in Ontario in environmental science and studies. And then after I graduated, I moved to Alberta for the summer and I was doing biomonitoring type work. And then I came back to Peterborough and there weren't a lot of environmental jobs there, so I ended up doing gymnastics coaching, which was fun. With Oath, I'm working on creating a network map, ecosystem map for the Halifax Regional Municipality. Yeah, I'm starting to get a good understanding of what the project actually is, but I've been kind of just learning about the project because that's something that lots of other people have been working on. So I'm just kind of getting my grasp with the project before I start actually doing stuff. So yeah, nice to meet all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kira. We have actually a long history with the Oath Network here at the ACCN. So the Oath Network was one of the, I'm going to say, co-conspirators of our fruition. So Cheryl Lubtack, who used to work there, was a co-chair and one of the co-founders of the ACCN. So her research at the Oath Network helped propel us into creating this whole entire experience, which started as just these network meetings. So shout out to Shatang Shu and shout out to the Oath Network because yeah, we love them. And Rohini, I believe that you were the last one, but definitely not the least one, right?
Yeah, hello everyone. So I'll admit I stumbled upon this little community practice monthly thing in a newsletter. And so I don't know, you said everyone's welcome, but I'm coming from the McConnell Foundation. So we are a private Canadian philanthropic foundation that funds in 3 different focus areas. We have Indigenous reconciliation, communities, and then climate, which is my team. So that's myself and then the program director who will review all proposals coming in under anything related to climate mitigation solutions. The reason I decided to join is because upon entering the role, which was about 6 months ago, I did a little bit of a scan in terms of where our funding has gone and which regions tend to receive most of it, which is really Quebec, Ontario, BC. And we recognized also that Atlantic Canada is one of the regions where we have very little sense of what is going on, mainly because, and this is what I'm hoping to learn also, is that a lot of it is through word of mouth and a lot of conversations that are happening through forms of such as this one. And so I'm hoping to kind of get a little bit of a sense in terms of what some pockets are that might benefit from more collaboration with foundations or just areas in which are blind spots, maybe. So that's kind of the intention with which I'm coming in. So it will be really more of a learning space for me, meeting new people as well. But again, I also know that sometimes when funders step into a space, it can affect the dynamic of conversations. And that's why I wanted to share that if this is a place, you know, there's certain intentions that you're coming in with for these meetings. And so if it's not funders, then I understand it as well, but it's really for us to help direct our strategies a little bit more too, because we want to ensure that we're tapping into the northern parts of Canada, another area where we're realizing we're not funding enough. And that's not just at the McConnell Foundation, but foundations in general. And Ashley, you had mentioned that a little bit before, that Atlantic Canada is a little bit removed from what's happening around the rest of Canada. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Maybe I'll share too that I have a background in international development studies with a focus on sustainable agriculture and food security. Those are a little bit more of my personal interests, but since then I've done a little bit of work with nonprofits, working with refugees as well. And so I've evolved, and my interests are, the scope of my interest is quite wide, and it looks like the group that we have here reflects that as well. So I'm quite interested and curious to see how this is all going to go.
Well, thank you, Rohini, for joining us. We definitely appreciate you coming. We have had people who direct funding and philanthropic efforts before come, and even government officials who are trying to understand better what's happening on the ground to our previous meetings. I don't want to ever speak for the group, but of course, I think that everybody would love opportunities to hear about funding funding initiatives, especially from the McConnell Foundation. So if there is ever anything that we can echo for you or any calls to action, please let us know, because that helps, like you were saying, better position Atlantic Canadians to further their impact and the deepening of their work, or even in some positions come online and be able to initiate and start their work, right? Funding is definitely always a hurdle, as well as many other out here that you'll come to learn. So thank you all again for being here. I'm very gracious to be able to open this circle with everybody and create this community of practice. Our goal here is to better serve people that are working within climate action, mitigation, adaptation, education, all of the spectrums and interdisciplinary work that happens within uplifting people and asserting issues and creating, better situations for social justice. And so what I have included here is an example of how we would like to move forward with our monthly meetings. I'm going to give you a bit of a history first, and then I have a bit of a poll before we get into the meat and potatoes here. So, like I was saying, I let the cat a little out of the bag because Kira got me excited, but the ACCN has been something that we've worked several years towards. I've been in this position for about 3 years now. And when we first started, it was really talking to community members and trying to understand what was happening. And the residual comments that kept coming back were that we just feel disjointed. There's a limited opportunity to understand what's happening in other spaces or other regions or other, workplaces on climate action. And yeah, there is not the same opportunity for each province as well. And so there's an environmental network in New Brunswick that operates very well. There's an environmental network in Nova Scotia that operates semi-well. There is not one in PEI, and there is not one in Newfoundland nor Labrador. And so we're trying to create relationships all across the Atlantic provinces to help people come out of isolation and feel connected. I think one of the residual things that I kept hearing in all of your introductions is that I feel kind of disjointed, or I don't necessarily have a community, or I'm new to the community, or I don't really know how I fit in. And so that's why we need to come together, because a community is more than just like the same replica of people. It takes that dynamic and it takes that diversity to really create and understand deeper issues, right? And so I'm really glad to have such a diverse crowd here and such a wealth of knowledge. And I hope that we can continue to have these and expand these into the future. And so these started a few years ago as just a general meeting. And at that time, like the very first one, we had so many people in that it just wasn't as effective as we wanted to, but it was a great kind of like launch event. And so we kind of just built a mailing list and started to email people and try to motivate people to come together. That's how it started. Last year, in the September of last year, we launched a website, and with that, a whole year's calendar of stuff. And so now we kind of officiated those monthly networking meetings, and we also added other opportunities as well. For example, something called the Innovation Speaker Series, which Vikram is actually going to speak at this month. It's next week. I can share the link as well, because we're really excited for our first one back. And we also have the casual conversations. Casual conversations is when we bring in a subject matter expert and we forego the presentation, get right to the question and answer period, because honestly, how often do you get FaceTime with a subject matter expert and get to ask them all of the things that you've wanted to ask them? And we've had people come in and talk about like ASMRs, coastal erosion and restoration, all a bunch of different types of topics, community mobilization, right? So it's important to create these types of conversations so that people who aren't part of other conversations have somewhere to go. And something else that we're also just launching again this month, we're very excited, is Green Ink, which is our book club. We also have like a writer circle, but we're still figuring and coordinating that kind of stuff out. But feel free to join us if you would like, if reading is your bag. But this is a little about what the ACCN does. Now, as we progressed through these networking meetings, what I noticed is that people felt disjointed. There were two audiences that were kind of clashing. One audience that was already well engaged, usually well educated, and working on climate at a higher level. And then community advocates that are grassroots and boots on the ground that are really trying to build understanding and comprehension and figure out what's happening in other communities. And so instead of trying to mesh a whole bunch of people together, what we decided to do this year was to split them up and to really focus on building communities that serve people that are utilizing these communities. And so obviously here we have a community of practice focused on uplifting and supporting those who are already engaged in climate action, mitigation, adaptation, education, all of the lists of the Asians. And then this evening at 7 p.m., we'll host our first meeting of the community of advocacy. And so that will go to people that are members of like our community climate hubs, people that are looking in other communities to connect, or even people who feel isolated in their own community and are just looking for somewhere to come. So we're excited for that as well. But obviously it's different strokes for different folks. And sometimes what was happening is when we held these meetings at 1 p.m., people who do not work within the climate sphere were unable to come. So I'm really excited that we've diversified this year and that we have a second meeting to help bring more people together. Do we have any questions at this point? Wonderful. Well, what we'll do is I'll take you through ideally what a month's agenda would look like. But before we do, I would love to just launch a bit of a poll. Essentially, this is our space, not my space, or not. Like I would like this to be fully egalitarian, right? Which means that everybody is welcome to co-create, co-lead, and co-initiate. And with spaces like this, I would not like to dictate how the time is used, but understand more deeply how the community feels the time is best served. So I have essentially a little bit of a poll here that will look at the objectives of the community of practice. Now, you might have to make it bigger because I don't know how big the things come out for you, but they look smaller to me. But essentially, during this time, you can choose multiple. And if you have a suggestion that is outside of this, please feel free to drop it in the chat. We would love to hear all about your wonderful ideas. But essentially, what we're going to be doing and focusing on are things like knowledge sharing, learning and development, networking and collaboration, innovation and creativity, always trying to think outside of the box and promote divergent thinking. And of course, advocacy and policy influence, if that is something that is interest to the group. Now, as we move forward, I plan to continue to launch this poll so that we can ensure that we're getting a good understanding of how, when people are coming and participating, we'd like to best use our time. And like I said, if you have any options or suggestions that are outside of that, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and then I can add them to the next poll as well.
All sound good. It's hard not to select all 5.
Has everybody had an opportunity to answer? Wonderful. And so these are the results. Everybody loves networking and collaboration. And I think that's one thing that's really needed. I love to use the analogy that sometimes because funding is so tight, or because, we feel like we need to stake our claim, sometimes we act in the NGO world as like a savage game of hungry hippos, trying to just gobble up the funding and like lay claim to where we are. But in reality, like many hands make light work. And so one of the ethos of this network is to obviously promote collaboration and ensure that people have that opportunity to amplify the work that they do, especially calls to action. And then as we become more knowledgeable about the more people acting in the space, we can facilitate better connections and relationship initiations ourselves as well, right? And so this is kind of what we're looking to do. Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. I have like a little bit of a definition here of like community of practice. So a community of practice is a group of people who share a common interest or passion and come together to learn, collaborate, and share knowledge. By fostering a supportive environment, COPs or community of practices enable members to exchange ideas, solve problems, develop their skills, build relationships, and contribute to innovation. So this collective effort can lead to significant advancements in the particular field or area of interest. Right? I feel like that. Can we all agree collectively that that's our goal here? Wonderful. And so I've built in, like I was saying before, an ideal scenario of an agenda, but we're all down for co-creation, so nobody is officially married to this. I do want to acknowledge that John has arrived in the meeting, though. John, how are you doing? Would you like to introduce yourself to everybody? I don't want to put you on the spot, though.
No problem. John Gascadden. I'm with the Halifax Waste Resource Society, and we monitor the operations at the Otter Lake landfill, and I do research on emerging technologies for solid waste management.
John, I just got finishing the song and dance of the ACCN history, but I know that you have been participating before, so I think that you are a bit aware of it, but don't worry, we're going to have this up on YouTube if you'd like to watch the recording.
Thank you.
I do want to reshare this agenda document, though, because I don't think that it shares automatically for people that enter after I've shared it the first time. So essentially, what we'd like to do is utilize this time to help build community, but also further some of the work that we're doing collectively. And so outside of like the wonderful introductions, some of the things that we would like to spend time on is like sharing and learning. So it says member led, but obviously people that are participating collectively in our community of practice would be able to present or lead discussions on current projects or challenges or successes. So that's something that we're, again, looking to internally promote what people are doing within the community of practice and build more understanding. And then, of course, we are going to have some knowledge sharing on that or best practices and a little bit of a Q&A session based on what they are hoping to present. I have some ideas for themes monthly. So unless somebody comes forward, what I'll do is I have these themes, I'll present them to the group if nobody already has something on the top of mind that they would like to present. And then if the group does not resonate with that idea or there's no expertise on that idea, I can go and facilitate finding somebody to come and do, for example, October, we were hoping for climate adaptation and resilience. And so, what top of mind comes to me is Climate Atlantic. I'm not sure if you all know about Climate Atlantic or have been familiar with the organization of Climate Atlantic. But if nobody here would like to come forward and present briefly on climate adaptation and resilience, we could always pull them in. I'm very familiar with a lot of people that work there because I harass often. So yeah, that's up for grabs. there is a sign up sheet at the bottom as well. So in big blue letters, if you scroll down a little bit, it says sign up to become a speaker. And that will bring you to another Google Sheet. And then that Google Sheet, essentially, you can put your month down that you would like to speak. So you say something in your program is launching in February and you're like, oh, I want to get in there. Like it's always a first come, first serve basis. But we can always ensure that people get an opportunity to speak if you sign up on the sign up sheet. Yeah. And so that is where we want to spend some time. I've kind of carved about 30 minutes out for that, but it's really going to be dependent on the topic or dependent on the person's approach on how they want to present, right? After that, I thought that we could facilitate essentially a collaborative problem solving initiative. So at this time, we could come together and really just like deep dive into an issue that I think that all of us resonate with and have a good conversation. So we could brainstorm for opportunities, talk about things that you might already be doing or participating in, identify potential solutions, yeah, or if you guys are really set on doing an action, this is when we get into political advocacy or any type of mobilization. We could always form subcommittees or working groups that can be supported through the ACCN to further these types of initiatives, depending on where people go. Like, for example, this happens. Something that's on the top of my mind, because I love to bring it up, is the New Brunswick Environmental Network and their effort to support the environmental Bill of Rights. And so that started with a subcommittee of really dedicated people that wanted to ensure that we laminate environmental rights into our policies. And so that was on its second reading, but unfortunately the last day of legislature, they ran out of time. We're hoping for a positive election result. And of course, candidates that are willing to bring forth and retable that bill again once we resume in December. David Kuhn has already committed to that. Yeah. So we could talk about those types of things, collaborative problem solving, really working on the issues. And so if there's something grinding your gears, we definitely want to hear about it. And we definitely want to work together to come up with community-based solutions, right? And then we can spend the remaining time together just networking and relationship building and talking about all of the things that really bring us together and drive us towards this collective action. So at that point, I don't really want to frame what networking and relationship building looks like, because that seems a little weird. And then for our last few minutes of the meeting, we'll just capstone what we've talked about, put out any calls to action, collect any links or outstanding anything. And then we will synthesize that and send that out to the people that had joined us that day. Sound wonderful? And of course, again, this is a space for co-creation. So if there's ever a divergent thought or like, hey, can we use this for some special something? Please always feel free to reach out, right? We want to use this time best that suits everybody. And so we can further all of our work collectively and, hold hands and skip merrily. I don't know what you want me to say. So at this point, I would love to open it up and hear what you guys would love to see from a community of practice, and what is something that has been a big hurdle in your work, or that has been something that has been hard to maybe overcome or circumvent with what you're doing in your own initiatives. Does that sound like a good way to use the time? That's only a suggested prompt as well. If you'd like to talk about something else, it's your time, right? Vikram, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. I don't really have a particular topic in mind. You did mention that I'm presenting at the Innovation Speaker Series this Monday. I'm super excited for that. But I don't want to take up time talking about that today. But yeah, I've been working sustainability for a while. Before this, my master's degree was in environmental assessment. I worked with the federal government for a while with the Canadian Wildlife Service. and now I'm in sustainability. So it's like a little bit of a jump everywhere. But I guess what we're working on is just helping small businesses adopt some of these sustainability measures that we really want to get going. And I know that there's some issues in Atlantic Canada and especially New Brunswick with sustainability and businesses and Irvings and all kinds of things. But yeah, I guess we're just trying to figure out who can benefit the most from our help, what kind of people, organizations, opportunities exist out there. And right now we're focused on really listening to people and seeing what kind of problems they're facing with sustainability. So yeah, I think it would be a great idea for people to discuss some of the issues they faced at work, and maybe it'll spark some ideas for other people to maybe collaborate.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Mel, do you want to share anything?
I'm trying to think actually of like, same as Vikram, something specific to share. I'm obviously very new into my position with Second Harvest. So in terms of the like food rescue side of things, don't have anything specific yet, but there will be. I think I'll have hopefully in our next meeting some interesting insights. We'll be headed to Newfoundland next Friday for the NL Eats conference. And learning a little bit more about what I'm already very quickly learning about is a large food insecurity topic of conversation and issue within Newfoundland and Labrador. So it'll be interesting to get some more insight into that, and then also see where, again, bringing it back into the climate realms, where food might be like increasingly going to waste, where it could really be taking care of that issue. So to bring some more insights into that, I look forward to our next meeting. But to kind of think a little bit back to my like youth climate action time, and so many of the previous participants of Climate Futures Lab here in Halifax have continually stayed in contact with me and keep reaching out to me. And a question that I've had come up 3 times, and maybe this is something that everyone here can help me with, is volunteer opportunities for youth that are in school that don't have a lot of time to commit to doing a lot on the outside of school, but volunteer opportunities that are currently present, that are available to do online, not an in-person kind of volunteer opportunity. So that's something that has been a question amongst the young people I was working with over the past year that has come up a couple of times. And I've done a little bit of research myself, but maybe anyone here might have some thoughts, ideas, or insights about online climate volunteer opportunities for young people, because I'm on the lookout for some opportunities that I can suggest to them.
Does anybody else want to go first?
I was just going to say for that, for what we're doing with the Canadian nurses, we're using them to help with our social media posts and doing posters for us, because they're often really creative and they can do that in their own time. And then we just say to them, we're going to do this, you know, and then we, you know, very broad strokes, and then they kind of take it away and they come back and they give us, you know, a poster. We don't make it too tricky, and then we just put our QR code on it as well. And I have to say, we also, if anyone's looking for volunteers, we have advertised on Charity Village, and that's free. And if you want people with more specific skills, you can find people, like if your organization is looking, you can find people there, and they'll do you posters and whatnot, and then they'll just use it in their portfolio of volunteer work that they've done. So it becomes a bit of an easy win-win. But for the students, because we sometimes get them reaching out, and we get them to do things like a poster and whatnot. And even if we're not using it straight away, we have a little backlog, so we can pull them out, you know, at different campaigns and things, and then send them a little email to say, hey, you know, that poster you did for us, well, you know, here it is. So it's kind of a feedback for them. That's just how we do it anyway.
I love that. Thank you for that suggestion. Is there a way or a specific person, email, etc., that I could direct them to get in contact with you guys through?
Sure, I can. You can just get them to email me. So
Okay.
I'll just sorry, I've just got a notification come up. I'll just put that in the chat for you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have an opportunity? Adrian?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I always think about Zooniverse, which is like an online citizen science thing, especially for like the folks who are really interested in climate biology. And then iNaturalist, which is also another excellent app. So there obviously like iNaturalist has a number of projects. Just in the link I've shared a search for the Atlantic Canada projects, including like invasive species identification and things like that. And I know like as an undergrad, I did my undergrad in geography, but I did a lot of bio work, and so I spent a lot of time just improving my species identification skills by going on iNaturalist. And there's something very meditative about Zooniverse, things like counting penguins or like going through archives. There's some really cool citizen science projects there, which are like very easy to do with like they're sort of great 5-minute stuff, and especially with iNaturalist, I find it's a really great like you can build your own skills in species identification, which I think especially if you're going into bio or doing environmental assessment, where it's useful to know. That's this huge challenge anyway in the prairies, is that a lot of folks who are doing the sort of ground surveys know the common species, but actually aren't familiar with the really rare endangered ones. And so it means that it's often a critique that you see in environmental assessments, at least in the work that I've done, is that the biologists actually don't know their rare species. So things like iNaturalist are a really excellent resource for the kids really wanting to get deeper into bio. That's just my 2 cents there.
I appreciate that. That's awesome. I love iNaturalist so much. So Zooniverse, I haven't had as much experience with, but those are awesome suggestions. Thank you so much, Adrian.
Citizen science is always such a great, wholesome way to volunteer as well. Does anybody else have any suggestions?
We should also pitch the NCL.
Oh, I'll have a whole spill. Rohini, would you like to go?
Yeah, I wanted to just share a little bit about, I don't know if you're familiar with Finance Engage Sustain, FES. This is a youth-led organization. I think it's fully youth-led. All of their staff are under 30, and they often have volunteering opportunities on their website. I think that's the route that I would suggest based off just what I know in my network. And then there's another one that's called Leading Change. I don't know if you've heard of that one before. There was the Globe Forum back in February in BC. At the same time, there was a Leading Change conference where about 120 youth were brought together to talk about climate and environmental related things. I attended one of those actually, and it was very, very insightful. But again, too, on their website, you'll be able to find volunteer opportunities. And then just, when I was younger, I always go on Good Work. I think I don't know if that's what Carrie or someone mentioned just before already. Yeah, but I'll definitely think about youth led organizations, or just organizations that are looking for youth to volunteer within our database of partners we funded.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Anybody else?
I'm still quite new to the Oath project, but the other day Shitangshu mentioned that we might in future be interested in getting some, or like taking on some student volunteers just to help out. It's not something we've done a lot of from my understanding, but it's something that we're interested in. So maybe just reaching out to Shitangshu and yeah, having that conversation with him because he knows more than me and will be around for longer than I will.
Will do. That's awesome. That's an exciting new development on the horizon. Thanks, Kara.
Kira, could you drop Shitangshu's email at the bottom? I believe it's shitangshu@oath.com or something, oath.org or something similar to that. Does anybody else have another opportunity they would like to discuss? Well, wonderful. I have a few opportunities. Oh, please, Carrie.
Sorry, actually, can I just, it's okay. I'm just gonna put one forward because I have to jump into another meeting, so I don't know how long I'll be
Yeah,
here for.
please.
I'm just gonna it's a course we've developed. It's not nursing focused, but it is health focused, but it's a really important course really for anyone in the environmental realm, and it's on environmental racism. So of course this is really topical, and it's a free course, so that doesn't cost anything. It's about 5 hours to sit through it. So I'm just going to put the link up for everyone. We'll be doing a big push out about it very soon, but really a really easy course to listen to. Actually, the main speaker is in Atlanta, Canada. So really, if you've got the time, or you know someone who's interested in learning more about environmental racism, as I say, it's a free course. So I just want to put that out there, that we've just finished and just released.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the interruption as well. Please always feel free to interject when you need to get something in there quick. That's how we do in regular conversation, is it not? Sometimes Zoom creates this formality and it's hard to break through. So yeah, just want to recognize that. I also have a number of opportunities for volunteers if people are interested. So the ACCN is always looking for different types of coordinators. The whole idea is that this community is built by the community and serves the community. And so we're always looking for, like currently right now, we're looking for somebody to help coordinate the other half of Green Ink. So Green Ink collectively last year was a book club. And then every other week, it was also a writer's circle. They were not joined, but kind of joined, but in ways that people could who were interested about like eco literature come into the fold and be part of the conversation or share. We read Kim Stanley Robinson's Ministry for the Future. It took us a long time. This year, we're reading this wonderful book. It's called The Story is in Our Bones. It's by Osprey. She's the We Can founder. So that's the Women Climate Action Network. Yeah, so we're doing this, but the other half of that is going to be more of an art collective. We want to expand what we're doing outside of just writing to encourage other types of art forms. And so we're looking for somebody to coordinate that. And casual conversations also needs a coordinator. So we're looking for somebody to identify subject matter experts, reach out to them, and schedule different opportunities for people to come and ask questions, essentially what it is. We can get into the methodology behind it if you'd like, but I digress. And then I also work for an organization, like we've said, called Climate Reality Project Canada. What we do is we work with groups of residents all across the country that are looking to accelerate their municipalities' local climate action. And so there are pockets here within the Atlantic coast, like Fredericton, St. John, Cape. There's a couple up in Cape Breton and Sydney, so the North Island, and then one in Halifax as well. And we can place people in these groups to help with like one-off tasks, like how Carrie was saying, build posters, help do social media campaigns. A lot of these groups tend to be people that have a lot of time on their hands, and that means that they're usually retired and maybe don't have the same type of social media savvy that you need to create cutting edge marketing. Do you know what I mean? They get really frustrated with like Google lists and stuff. And so if we could help somebody like just help them, that's great. Or even if they're skilled with something and they would like to teach people, like we can create opportunities for them to share their skills and do stuff like that. But CRPC has something called the like action task force that we're trying to create, and essentially this works that same type of model but across the country with other hubs that are dispersed. And so it essentially, if you have somebody that wants to volunteer, we can always use an extra volunteer. Here he jumped out. I gave a late wave. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. Yeah, wicked. There's loads of volunteer opportunities, especially online based.
Well, post-COVID, what has happened is there's been a very large lull in volunteer work. And so people that had regularly come out before to volunteer were just not as engaged. And so honestly, as somebody who works a lot off volunteer power, it's music to my ears that people are coming out to you and wanting to engage in this way. It means that they're coming back online and wanting to contribute to provoking change, if you will. So I'll drop my email in the chat for you and for anybody else that wants to reach out. Yeah, we're always looking for new help, new volunteers, all of that. I do want to recognize that we have less than 5 minutes left though. And I want to also talk about something that we are doing that's upcoming that is a national campaign. We have something called the Climate Reality, or we have something called the National Climate League. There's so many things with the word climate in it, it just triggers, right? And so next month we are presenting our 6th edition of findings from the National Climate League. But essentially what this is, it's a participatory data collection project. And so we use volunteers from across the country to collect data on municipalities. And then we create this, well, we have even a dashboard that's underway, but we also create city profiles, and there's this very robust document that looks at different types of benchmarking and initiatives that are happening within municipalities. Something that I've been pushing for since my, time here began at Climate Reality is more representation from Atlantic municipalities and Atlantic efforts. So if you have a swell of people that are looking to participate, the presentation is next week. And then what will happen is we'll go back into data collection season. And I would love to reach out to you, Mel, and share when that opportunity comes, because we're looking to put more places in Atlantic Canada on the map. And so more people out here engaging with their municipalities and collecting that information and data allows us to do that. Yeah. Any questions? Well, we've come pretty much to the top of the hour here. Does anybody have anything that they want to say before we leave?
Thank you so much for hosting such a great session.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I hope you both come next month.
I have two thoughts before we wind up. Yeah, I would love to talk about a topic that's personal to me next time, which is public transit, and I find Atlantic Canada is rough with that. So I think that's one of the issues that I find that's sort of limiting cross communication between, say, St. John and Halifax. So I would love to talk about that next time. But,
wonderful.
Second thought, yeah, I'm doing a presentation on Monday. If anybody has time, please come check it out and learn a little bit about sustainability. Appreciate it. And that's it.
I will share a link to that as well. Here we go. This is Vikram's presentation. It shall be on the 23rd at 1 p.m. We hope to see some of your bright, shiny faces there. And if you could share this on your own personal networks, it allows us to reach people that we've never reached before. And with that, I have so much gratitude for you all today in helping share and create this amazing conversation. And I hope to see you next month for our next community of practice meeting. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for hosting.
Nice to meet all of you. This has been